two different types of computational method. One is the finite difference method, another is the method of moment. Well, we have seen that finite difference method basically deals to solve the differential equation, and method of moment is used to solve the integral equation. Now today we will discuss about the another type of computational method that is known as finite element method. Now, like the differential method that we have already discussed, a finite difference method that we have already discussed, that was also deal with the differential equation. So like the finite difference method, this finite element method also deals with the differential method, or to solve the differential equations. If you remember the basic of finite difference method, whatever the solution region, we have divided the solution region by an array of grid points in case of finite difference method. So as we have divided the entire solution region into number of array of grid points, so this type of technique is difficult to apply for the irregularly shaped boundaries. If the solution boundary or solution region is irregularly shaped, then it is difficult to apply the finite difference method, because as per the basic of finite difference method, we have to divide the entire solution region into number of arrays of grid points. So FDM is difficult to apply for the problems having some irregularly shaped grid points. Now to overcome this particular problem of FDM, that the new technique, that is finite element method, was proposed, and this particular method can deals with the both regularly shaped and irregularly shaped boundaries simultaneously. So if you compare the FDM and finite element method, both the technique will deals with the to solve the differential equations, but FDM is not suitable. FDM is not suitable for the irregularly shaped boundaries, whereas finite element method is suitable for both regularly shaped and irregularly shaped boundaries. That is the basic idea about the finite element method. With this discussion, I am going to share the presentation. The PPT is visible from your end?
Yes,
If
sir.
the PPT is visible, okay. So to start the discussion on the finite element method, first we should know that it is basically used to solve the differential equations, as I mentioned, and it is suitable for both regularly shaped and irregularly shaped boundaries, whereas FDM is only suitable for the regularly shaped boundaries due to its grid structure. Now to apply the finite element method to solve some differential equations related to the electromagnetic problems, you have to follow the four basic steps. So like the FGM, in that case also, first we have to divide the or discretize the entire solution region into a finite number of subregions or elements. So whatever the shape of the given solution boundary, whether it is regular or irregular, in the first step you have to discretize the solution region, entire solution region, into a finite number of subregions or elements. Then we have to derive the governing equations for a particular or for a typical element. In the first step, we have discretized the entire solution region into finite number of subregions or elements. After that, in the step 2, we have to derive the governing equation for a typical element or a particular element. Next, we have to assemble all the elements. We have to assemble all the elements within the solution region. For example, if we divide the entire solution region into 4 or 5 subregions or 4 or 5 elements, then in the step 3, we have to assemble all the elements that are within the solution region. And in the last step, we have to solve the set of equations for the final solutions. So in the step 2, we have to derive the governing equation for a particular element. So for each and every element, we will get some governing equations. Then we have to assemble all the elements that are within the solution region. So in the step 3, we will get a set of equations. So in the final step, that is in the step 4, we have to solve that set of equations for the final solution. Now with this basic discussion, we'll basically discuss in details about the finite element method by considering some example. So in the step 1, we have to discretize the entire solution region. For example, if we consider this type of solution boundary that is mentioned by the dotted line, the dotted line is representing the actual boundary of the given problem or given solution region. Now, as per the statement of the step 1, we have to discretize this solution boundary, entire solution boundary, or approximate the solution boundary by number of subregions or number of elements. That's why the entire solution region is divided into 4 elements, where we have considered 2 triangular elements and 2 quadrilateral elements with 7. Someone is trying to enter the class. I have to admit. Wait. D. Chakraborty. So this entire solution region is divided into 4 elements, where 2 are triangular and 2 are quadrilaterals, and there are total 7 nodes: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So there are total 7 nodes. So node number is represented by, say, I. I is representing the node number, and the number within the circle, that is these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4. These are representing the number of elements. So there are total 4 elements and 7 nodes. So with this 4 element, the entire solution region is approximated. So this, you can say, this solid boundary lines, it is representing the approximated boundary of the given solution region. Now we have to approximate the potential, that is VE, within a particular element. Within a particular element means that may be 1, that may be 2, or that may be 3 or 4. So that is the first approach. That means we have to approximate the potential VE within a particular element. After that, we have to interrelate that potential distribution of a particular element to the other elements. And in that case, one point you have to remember that the potential must be continuous across the inter-element boundaries. The potential across the inter-element boundaries, that must be continuous. So these are the initial conditions to apply the step 1 for the finite element method. The entire solution region will be divided into a number of subregions or elements. Then you have to approximate the potential VE within a particular element. After that, you have to interrelate that potential distribution in the other elements in such a way that the potential across that potential must be continuous across the inter-element boundaries. Now the question is how we can, once we approximate the potential of a particular element, that is by VE of xy, where E is representing the number of elements, that is, for example, 1 to n. So the summation, so how you will be able to find out the total potential, that is V of xy, that will be approximately equal to the summation of VE of xy over the summation over E equal to 1 to n. Now in the solution region, as per this given example, we have divided the entire solution region into 4 elements, where 2 are triangular and another 2 are quadrilateral. So for the different shape of elements, we have to approximate the potential of the corresponding element by some polynomial approximation. So for a triangular element, we can approximate the potential of the corresponding triangular element by this polynomial approximation. V of xy equal to a plus bx plus cy, where a, b, and c are the constant. Now for the quadrilateral element, the polynomial approximation will be like that: V of xy equal to a plus bx plus cy plus d of xy. So with this type of polynomial approximation, we can approximate the potential in a particular element. If it is triangular, then that will be the corresponding polynomial equation. If the element is quadrilateral, then that will be the form of the corresponding approximate equations or polynomial equation. Now, one point you must remember, that the potential within the element, when we are considering to approximate some potential in a particular element, that potential will be always non-zero, and outside the element, that potential will be 0. Now the question is, out of this triangular element or quadrilateral element, which particular shape is preferable for the better approximation of the entire solution boundary? In this present example, we have divided the entire solution region into 2 quadrilateral and 2 triangular elements. Now the question is, out of this triangular and quadrilateral shape, which particular shape is preferable to approximate the any irregular shape boundaries in a better way, so that the approximation will be better? Any idea? See, if you consider the shape of the element as quadrilateral, then it will be difficult to approximate the boundary of the solution region where the solution boundary or solution region is irregular. If you have to approximate some irregularly shaped boundaries or region by the quadrilateral element, then approximation will not be better, or approximation will be, it will be difficult. You can say it will be difficult to approximate the irregularly shaped boundaries by the quadrilateral elements. Particularly for that reason, because as we are moving from finite difference method to finite element method, so that we can handle the both regularly shaped boundaries and irregularly shaped boundaries. So considering this particular point, it is better to go with triangular shaped element rather than quadrilateral element, because if we want to approximate some irregularly shaped boundaries with quadrilateral shaped elements, then approximation will be difficult and approximation will not be better. That's why for the throughout our discussion, that thing I think it is mentioned in this particular point. That is, it is difficult to approximate the boundary of the solution region with quadrilateral elements. Such elements are useful for problems whose boundaries are sufficiently regular. If the given solution boundary is regular, then you can consider the quadrilateral shaped elements. Otherwise, it is better to go with the triangular shaped elements. That's why for the throughout the analysis or discussion, we will consider the element shape as the triangular shape. So once you approximate the potential of a particular element, then from the potential you can approximate the electric field of the corresponding element. As we know from the basic of electromagnetic theory, the electric field, that is nothing but the gradient of the potential minus the gradient of the potential. Now, considering the triangular shaped element, we have already approximated the potential of a triangular element by the equation VE of xy equal to a. In that particular equation, if you apply the derivative, that is, if you apply the derivative to the equation 2, then the electric field will be minus of B of AX plus C of AY, where AX and AY, these are the unit vector along the corresponding X and Y axis. So up to this is the step 1. That is, we have divided the entire solution region into finite number of elements. We will prefer to approximate the entire solution region by the triangular shaped element, because with the help of triangular shaped elements we can approximate the irregularly shaped boundaries more in a better way. Once we divide the entire solution region into finite number of elements, then we have to approximate the potential in a particular element, and from the potential of the corresponding element we can find out the electric field by this particular equation number 4. And to approximate and on another point, to approximate the potential of a particular triangular element, you have to consider the polynomial approximation, that is VE equal to A plus BX plus CY, that we have mentioned I think in equation number 2. Now once you have divided the entire solution region into finite number of elements and you have approximated the potential of a particular element, then you have to move to the step 2 to derive the element governing equations for a particular element. Now to derive the element governing equation for a particular element, we are considering a particular element, a single triangular element with 3 vertices with 3 different coordinate points, x1, y1, x2, y2 and x3, y3. In that case, the corresponding node of the triangular element is numbered in anti-clockwise direction. This is called the local numbering, and this local numbering in the finite element method, that should be always in the anti-clockwise direction. You can start from any point, but you have to move along the anti-clockwise direction to number the node of the element in local numbering process. So we have considered a single element with 3 vertices with 3 different coordinate points, and we have start the numbering, local numbering from this particular node. If it is 1, then we have to move anti-clockwise direction. So it is 1, it is 2 and 3. And we are considering that the potential at the 3 vertices or 3 nodes are VE1, VE2 and VE3. At the 3 different nodes, these are the potential VE1, VE2 and VE3. So now from this particular equation number 4, this is the polynomial approximation for a particular triangular element V equal to A plus BX plus CY. So from this equation, we can write down this potential matrix for a particular element that we have mentioned in the last slide. So that will be VA1, VE2, VE3. On the right hand side, it will be like that: 1x1, y1, 1x2, y2, 1x3, y3. These are the coordinate point of the corresponding nodes, and that is the another column matrix ABC. That means the equation number 2, or the basic polynomial approximation, is now written in the form of matrix in the equation number 5. Now these coefficients A, B, C can be, we can find out this coefficient ABC from this equation 5 using the matrix transmission, using the transpose of the matrix. Now if we put this particular equation number 6 in this equation number 2, then that VE of XY will be equal to these equations, where this A is representing the area of the corresponding element, in summation form. We can also write down this equation in this particular form: VE I equal to 1 to 3 alpha I x I VE of I. That is the potential at a point x comma y that is within the element. This V is representing the potential within the element, provided that the potential at the vertices, that is VE1, VE2 and VE3, are known. Now in this equation, basically this equation is written in this particular form. So what is this alpha I x I? This alpha I x I, it is known as the interpolation function, or that is also known as element shape function. This alpha I of x comma I am not going to the details about this calculation. You can go through this calculation of this particular matrix form, or you can check it or verify it. Okay, so this alpha I comma x comma I, it is representing the interpolation function or element shape function. You can easily find out this alpha I alpha 1 will be equal to 1 by 2a. If you consider the previous matrix form of the equation VE, then alpha 1 will be equal to 1 by 2a of this, alpha 2 will be equal to 1 by 2a of this, and alpha 3 will be 1 by 2a of this. So this set of alpha, these are basically known as, this is basically alpha I, it is basically known as interpolation function or element shape function. where this A is representing the area of the element E. A is representing the area of the element E. So that will be equal to 2A equal to this particular form. You can easily calculate this area of the element of the corresponding element by this equation. Next, with this particular discussion, this particular value of that is A, area of the corresponding element, it will be positive if we number the corresponding element in counterclockwise direction as shown in the previous figure. Now these are called the element shape function alpha I of x comma I. This is called the element shape function. It will be equal to 1 if I equal to j, and it will be 0 if I not equal to j. The element shape function alpha I of x j comma yj, it will be 1 if I equal to j, and it will be 0 if I not equal to j. So the previous equation is representing the element governing equation. Then if we want to find out the energy, as we know, energy equal to half of surface integral of epsilon of E squared ds. So in terms of E, you can write del of gradient of V, grad V, so grad V square of ds. So the energy of the particular element, energy of the particular element, that will be half of this epsilon grad V square ds. Now this grad of VE means VEI into grad of alpha I. If you put this particular equation, then we can write down this WE, the energy of the corresponding element, that will be half of I summing over summation of I equal to 1 to 3 and j equal to 1 to 3 epsilon VI del of alpha I and del of alpha into del of alpha j into ds into V of EJ. You see, there are two grad of V square. So in place of grad of V square, one will be, that means square of this. So you have to consider one is VEI, another is VJ, and one is del of alpha I, another is del of alpha j. Now this particular term within the integration part, it is basically representing the C of ij over E. That means this is the coupling coefficient or coupling between the ith and jth nodes of a particular element. If we consider a particular element, then this particular integration, it is representing the coupling between the ith node and jth node of a particular element E. So this is equal to basically the Cij of E equal to integration of grad of alpha I dot grad of alpha j ds. Then we can write the equation in 10, this equation 10 in a matrix form. Half epsilon is there. Now one is VEI another is VE of J. So one is represented by VE of, that is the transpose, and another is VE. And the part within this integration, it is represented by C of E, where this VE matrix V is basically the column matrix of VE1, VE2 to VE3. And this CE, where is CE? C of E, it is basically known as element coefficient matrix. Element coefficient matrix, it represents the coupling between the ith and jth nodes of a particular element. So this C of E, it is representing the element coefficient matrix. As the element shape of the element is triangular, so there are three nodes, 1, 2, 3. So this is basically, that will be a 3 cross 3 matrix. From one node to one node, from 1 to 2 node, from 1 to 3 node, in that way, from 2 to 1, 2 to 2, 2 to 3. This is for the element 2. Sorry, this is for the second node. This is for the third node. In that way, this is simply the element coefficient matrix. That is the coefficient matrix for a particular element, not for the entire solution region. Now the question is how we can find out this element coefficient, the element of the element coefficient matrix, that is C11 of E, C12 of E, C13 of E. How we can find out that one? As per the basic equation of C of ij, C of ij is basically the integration of grad of alpha I, grad of alpha j ds. Now if you want to say, for example, we want to find out this particular element of this element coefficient matrix, that is C12 of E. So that means I equal to 1, j equal to 2. So that will be, there will be the integration of grad of alpha 1 to grad of alpha 2 ds. Now we have already find out the alpha 1 and alpha 2. So grad of alpha 1 means the derivative of the alpha 1, and grad of alpha 2 means that is the derivative of alpha 2. From that particular point, you can easily find out this particular value, and only on the integration there will be only ds. ds is the area of the element. So summation integration of ds means this is nothing but a. So 1a, and this is square 1a, and this particular a will cancel out. So there will be only 1 by 4a. So in that way, you can find out the coefficient of each and every element of the coefficient matrix, whether it is C11 or C12 or C13. So in that way, you have to find out C11, C13, C22, all those things. C11 means you have to consider the grad of alpha 1 and grad of alpha 2. C of 13 means you have to consider the grad of alpha 1 and grad of alpha 3. Similarly, for the C2 and C23 and C33. One point is that C21 will be equal to C12, C31 will be equal to C13, and C32 will be equal to C23. They will be equal. So up to this, we have find out the coefficient matrix for a particular element. This coefficient matrix is in the, if we move backward, this is the CE, C of E. So the total energy of the particular element can be find out from these equations. From this equation, we are basically going to find out this C of E, that is the element coefficient matrix. Each and every element of this coefficient matrix can be find out by using this equation, integration of grad of alpha I into grad of alpha j ds. Grad of alpha I, grad of alpha j, you can calculate if you move back. We have already calculated this alpha 1, alpha 2, and alpha 3. So from this particular point, by applying the z of alpha 1, z of alpha 2, and z of alpha 3, you can calculate it. Up to this is the function of the step 2. We have derived the element governing equation or the governing equation for a particular element. Now we have to move to the step 3. That means we have to assemble all the elements. In step 2, we have find out the governing equation for a particular element. For a particular element, we have derived the element coefficient matrix C of E. In the element coefficient matrix, we have to find out each and every element of the corresponding element coefficient matrix from the alpha 1 and alpha 2. Now you see, if you have to find out the energy of the entire solution region, that means you have to apply the summation on the previous equation of the WE. WE is the energy of a particular element. Now if you want to find out the total energy of this particular solution, given solution boundary, you have to apply the summation over E equal to 1 to n, where n is representing the total number of elements. E equal to 1 to n, summation of WE. Now in that particular place, if you compare the previous equation of WE, it was half of epsilon, VE, only the difference is there was a VE, its transpose, there was a VE matrix, and in this particular place of C, there was a element coefficient matrix that was C of E. So now when we are going to find out the total energy of the entire solution boundary, we are basically simply we are summing the energy of a particular element over 1 to n. So here this V is basically V1 to Vn, where n is representing the number of elements, number of nodes in the total. Small n is representing the number of nodes in the total solution boundary. Small n is representing the number of nodes, and capital N is representing the number of elements. This particular C, previously it was CE for a particular element. Now this C matrix, it is representing the matrix or coefficient matrix for the entire solution boundary. That's why it is known as overall or the global coefficient matrix. Okay. In place of when we in up to step 2, we are just dealing with a single element. So there was the coefficient matrix of CE that was basically known as element coefficient matrix. Now when we are assembling all the elements, in place of CE, it will be C. So it is representing the coefficient matrix for the entire solution boundary. That's why it is known as global coefficient matrix. So for this particular global, what will be the element of this global coefficient matrix? Now to move further, for the simplicity of our discussion, we are assembling three triangular elements in this particular way. This is element 1, element 2, element 3. Forget about the first solution boundary that we have divided into four number of finite elements. Now for the simplicity of our discussion, we have considered that the entire solution region is divided into three elements and they are placed as per this figure. This is the element 1, element 2, element 3. And there are total 5 nodes. Node 1, this is represented by this one. Node 2, 3, 4, 5. The number outside the solution boundary, it is known as global numbering. So the number within the circle, it is representing the element numbering. There are three triangular elements, 1, 2, 3. Then this is known as the number within the corresponding element. It is known as the local numbering. And as per our previous discussion, it must be anti-clockwise direction. You can start from any point, but it must be anti-clockwise direction. 1, 2, 3. For the element 2, it is also 1, 2, 3 anti-clockwise direction. For this particular element, it is 1, 2, 3. So the numbering within the element, this is called the local numbering, and this local numbering must be in the anti-clockwise direction. Now the numbering outside the solution boundary, that is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. There are total 5 nodes. This is known as the global numbering. This global numbering, there is no rule whether it will be anti-clockwise or clockwise. That can be arbitrarily, that is as per your choice. You can start from any point, you can put the number as per your choice. So global numbering is in your choice, but the local numbering, that must be anti-clockwise direction, and the choice of starting point is in your hand. So that is the basic idea about the numbering of elements, that is the local numbering as well as the global numbering. So the entire solution boundary is divided into 3 elements, 3 triangular elements, 1, 2, and 3. Now for this particular simplified structure, we have to find out this global coefficient matrix. So again, we have considered the same figure, 3 elements, 1, 2, 3. There are total 5 nodes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So the numbering outside the element, they are known as the global numbering. Now numbering within the element, they are known as local numbering. So what will be C? Global matrix of this particular solution boundary. As there are 5 nodes, so it will be simply a 5 cross 5 matrix. C of 1, 1, C of 1, 2, C of 1, 3, C of 1, 4, C of 1, 5. In that way, for 5th node, that will be 5, 1, 5, 2, 5, 3, 5, 4, and 5, 5. Now that this is very simple to write down the global coefficient matrix from a particular assembly or from a particular given structure of the solution boundary. So now the question is how we can write down the element of this global coefficient matrix. The individual element this C of 1, 1 is basically representing the coupling between 1 to 1. C of 1, 2 is representing the coupling between 1 to 2. 1 on 1, 2, they are representing the global numbering, not the local numbering. As it is known as the global matrix, that means these numbers C of 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3, they are representing the global numbering. The coupling between 1 to 1, coupling between 1 to 2, coupling between 1 to 3, 1 to 4, 1 to 5, in that way. Now when in the next step, we have to find out the element, each and every element of this global coefficient matrix. So for example, if you want to find out this C11, C11, so this, to find out this element of this global coefficient matrix, you have to depend on the element coefficient matrix. That means if we concentrate on this to find out C11, we have to concentrate on this global numbering 1. Now this global numbering is associated with the element number 1 and element number 2. Now once you determine that this particular node, global node, is associated or linked with element number 1 and 2, not with the element number 3, it is only associated or connected with the element number 1 and element number 2, then you have to determine which local numbering or node of the element are linked with this global node. the node 1 of element 1 and node 1 of element 2, they are linked with this particular global numbering or global node. So what will be C11? So all these things are mentioned in this particular paragraph. This is basically 5 cross 5 matrix. C of ij, it is representing the coupling between ith and jth node. Now to find out the C11, so C11, as I have mentioned, 1 and 1, it is representing the global numbering. So you have to consider the node number 1 of the global numbering 1. This 1, the node 1 is associated with the element 1 and 2, not with element 3. Now in the element 1 and element 2, only the node 1 of element 1 and the node of element 2, they are connected with this particular global node 1. So what will be the C11? That is C11 of E. C11 of E means so basically we are writing it, that is basically equal to C11 C11 of corresponding element plus, or you can write C11 of corresponding another element E. Now you see, as I have mentioned, this is the global numbering. This global numbering is associated with only with this particular node of element 1 and this particular node of element 2. So this coefficient, this particular coefficient of the global coefficient matrix, that will be equal to C11 of element 1 and C11 of element 2. Next, if you have any problem, you can ask me. Next, if you have to find out C22, then what you will do? First, you identify the corresponding global node or global numbering. This is the global numbering 2. This is the global numbering 2. Now you have to determine that which elements are directly connected or associated with this global node 2. Can anyone tell me what will be this particular element C22 in terms of element coefficient matrix? Anyone from your side? Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Then please tell me if you have no problem to understand my previous discussion regarding this particular element of the global coefficient matrix, then I think we should tell about this C22. What will be C22? Yes. This global node 2, it is only connected with the element number 3. It is only connected with the node 3 of the element 1, not with the element 2 or element 3. And only node 3 of the element 1 is connected, not the 2 or 1. So this C22 will be equal to C33 of which element? Of 1. So for C22, 2 belongs to the element number 1 and it is only associated with the node 3 of the element 1. So it will be C33 of 1. Then if we try to find out this C44, that means we have to identify this fourth node as per the global numbering. As per the global numbering, this is the fourth node, and this fourth node, you see, it is associated with the all element 1, element 2, and element 3. Then you determine which node of the corresponding elements are directly connected with 4. Node 2, node 3 of 2, and node 3 of 3 is connected with the global node 4. So what will be the equation of C44?
C221 plus
C44
C3.
will be equal to, first, if we consider element 1, its element 2 is C22 of 1 plus
C33 of 2.
C3 of 2
C33 of 3.
plus C of 3 of element 3. Okay. I think it is mentioned here. Next, suppose you have to find out C of 1, 4. Suppose you have to find out C of 1, 4. Now this is off diagonal element. That means now what you have to do? Once again, you have to mark the corresponding global node 1 and 4. Corresponding global node 1 and 4. That means now you can't consider the node that are associated with the element. Rather, you have to consider this connecting line between the corresponding global node. That means C of 1, 4 means this is the coefficient of the C on 4 is the coefficient of the global matrix between the global node of 1 and 4. So global node, the connection between global node of 1 and 4 means this particular line. Now you have to determine that this particular line is associated or connected with this element number 1 and element number 2. In element number 1, it is connected with node 1 and node 2, and for the element number 2, it is connected with the node 1 and node 3. So what will be C of 1, 4? C of 1, 4 will be the C of 1, 2 of element 1, C of 1, 2 of element 1 plus C of 1, 3 of element 2, C of 1, 3 of element 2, C of 1, 3 of element 2. Okay. So when we have to deal with the off diagonal element, then we have to consider the corresponding common line between the corresponding global nodes. When it is diagonal element of the global coefficient matrix, then there is no problem. You just consider the corresponding node. You find out which elements are directly connected with the corresponding global node. Then you write down the corresponding element of the global coefficient matrix as per our discussion. But when it is off diagonal element like this C of 1, 4, that means first you identify the corresponding global node. This is 1 and 4. So they are connected, directly connected by this line. They are directly connected by this line. Now this line is the common line or the boundary line between the element number 1 and element number 2. And in case of element number 1, node 1 and node 2 are associated with this common boundary line. So it will be C of 1, 2 of element 1. And in case of element number 2, node 1 and node 3, they are directly connected with this common boundary line. So it will be C of 1, 3 of 2. Yes, it's correct. Now suppose if you want to find out C23, what will be C of 2, 3? C of 2, 3 means global node 2 and global node 3. So we are going first, we will mark the corresponding node. This is 2, this is 3. Now as per the diagram, is there any common line between 2 to 3? As per this diagram, is there any line between 2 to 3? These 2 and 3 are not directly connected. So the C of 2, 3 will be 0. Similarly, the corresponding C32 will be also 0. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Now someone just tell me what will be C of 1, 4 is okay. C of 2, 4. C of 4, 1. So C of 4, 1 will be, C of 4, 1 will be same. C of 4, 1. Four one is okay. Next, if you consider C of C of 3, 4. For example, if you want to find out C of 3, 4. Now you tell me what will be C of 3, 4.
C of 2, 3 of 2. C of 1, 3 of 3 plus.
Correct. C of 3, 4 means, once again, you identify it. This is the 3 and 4. This is the common boundary wall between element number 2 and element number 3. Now 3, 4 means when you write down the corresponding element coefficient matrix, you will move from this point to this, not in the reverse direction. C of 3, 4, we are going to find out C of 3, 4. So you have to write down that C of 2, 3 of element 2. C of 2, 3 of element 2 plus, then it will be C of 1, 3. C of 1, 3 of element 3. So in that way, one by one, if the structure is not very complex, you can easily find out the element of the corresponding global coefficient matrix. And once you find out all the element of the global coefficient matrix, and write down the entire global coefficient matrix for the corresponding or for the given solution boundary. So that will be the corresponding global coefficient matrix. Now we can consider these properties of the global coefficient matrix. So it will be symmetric, that is C of ij equal to C of ji, and since C of ij equal to 0, if there is no coupling between I and j, as we have seen that C of 2 3, C of 3 2, that was 0 because there was no direct connection between 2 and 3. So it consists of large number of zero element, and all the non-zero element are basically concentrated along the diagonal lines. So you can also say that this matrix will form a spare matrix format or banded matrix format. So in the end of the step 3, we have derived the set of equations for the entire solution boundary by combining all the elements. Now in the last step, you have to basically solve that particular set of equations. Okay, so this is all about the basic of finite element method. In step 1, you are dividing the entire solution region into finite number of elements. To deal with the irregularly shaped boundaries, we will prefer the triangular shape of the element. We will approximate the potential of the corresponding element by some polynomial approximation. If, as we have considered the triangular shape element, so it will be a plus the potential of the corresponding element, that is v of e will be equal to a plus bx of cy. Once we approximate the potential of a single element, then we have to find out the governing equation for the corresponding element. Next, once you find out the governing equation for a single element, in the next step, you have to apply you have to assemble all the elements of the corresponding solution region to find out the set of equations, and in the final step, you have to solve the entire set of equations for the final solution. When we will deal with a single element, we have to find out the element coefficient matrix, that is C of E. When we will combine all the element of the corresponding solution boundary, we have to consider the global coefficient matrix. In the global coefficient matrix, we can easily find out the element of the each and every element of the corresponding global coefficient matrix as per our previous discussion. Now, you have to basically concentrate on the numbering system. There are two types of numbering: local numbering and the global numbering. Global numbering, that is basically as per your choice, but the local numbering of the corresponding element, that is the numbering of the node of a particular element, that should be anti-clockwise. Starting point may be as per your choice, but the numbering will be in the anti-clockwise direction. So this is all about the discussion on the computational method, starting from finite difference method to method of moment to the finite element method. There are different types of simulation software are available, like HFSS, CST, which are basically based on these computational methods that makes the analysis of any kind of shape of the structure. That's why we basically easily solve the different types of structure like antenna, like filter using this type of simulation software. Now, if you have any query, you can ask me. This is the end of my portion of the syllabus. I'll share the today's presentation to all of you. Not only today's, actually, I think I did not share the finite difference method as well as method of movement. All these are in this particular presentation, so I will share it.